Okay, so we're getting back to it. It's Monday morning. So I've got to finish trying to mount this bumper, and after that, I've got to give a good hard think as to which direction I'm going to take next. But either way, you'll see that. So let me just turn the camera around and show you what I'm up to with the bumper mounting, and we'll go on from there. Okay, so as you can see, I drilled out, let the gas out of the pistons, and then cut these mounts off, abbreviated them. Basically, it was going to be they weren't going to line up and go into the holes in the frame rails that were available to me. So what I had to do, since I wasn't going to shove those pistons into the frame rails like they are on the G bodies, is come up with a plate. So I've got a 3/16 plate here that I made up for both sides, and hopefully the bumper mount will land somewhere in this neighborhood. If not, I'll have to relocate the bolt ups. But at any rate, this is all I'm going to do. Going to bring those tubes in here and weld them to this plate, and that'll be my mount. Strong enough. Anyway, I'll get after it and show you my results. All right, so I've got them tacked up into place. Now I just have to pull them back off and solid weld them all the way around. But it's pretty simple fix, and so that should work just fine. Nothing complicated about that. Just a plate to the front of the frame rail where the old bumper structure from the Camino bolted up, and then the backside of what's left of the 5 mph pistons mounting points that the Buick had on it, and partial pieces from the back structure, which is plenty to hold this whole thing up. Anyway, gotta get these off and weld them up. Okay, one of the small details that had to be taken care of up front is this tie-in point here. So I had to put this L-shaped bracket here, and have this it's a large lock nut that's welded onto the top side. And on the bottom side, it's there's a large washer, and this is all bolted up through there. That ties in the bottom of the fender and keeps it from flapping around right here. It's pretty solid. It didn't really want to flap, but that's one of the security points that was on the El Camino. So I felt like it was necessary to put that back there. And so, again, just one of the little things that it's easy to overlook, and then later on be a pain in the butt to try and reinstall. Okay, also I'm going ahead here and painted up these brackets that hold the bumper on. There's no reason why they can't go on permanently and stay on the car from this point on, so I just thought I'd paint them up, get them on there. And I've also gone ahead and installed the finish wheels on the back side of the car on the rear end. And the reason for that is I'm going to proceed here and see how all my clearances end up with this larger flare on here. And the way I've set that in motion is I've taken out the coil springs, which I got to say, working on a regular straight axle car compared to the independent rear suspension that I've been dealing with on these Chryslers, it's pretty much of a breeze. I mean, just taking springs in and out is like nothing. Anyway, so I've got the jack under the rear end here now, and I've got the new bump stobs. You can see those red bump stobs installed. So I'll be proceeding to, once I clearance out both sides, take out the sheet metal I know has to come out. I'll jack that up and see if there's any interferences with my new pieces over here. I've already started to prepare the other side, and one of the things I was going to do, I said in my earlier video, was to take this flange, and you can see where it's flat down at the bottom where it intersects the El Camino stuff, and then as it comes up, I'm beating it back on an angle here to create a closer fit, and then it comes back out on the back side here. Anyway, I'll have to take the other piece off, do that. Of course, I'll fill all these holes here with weld, and then yeah, so I'm moving on to this back end over here. There's still a few little details up front. I'll be taking care of in and out of that stuff, but that's where I'm going with this right now. All right, so I want to fill up all of these drill holes where I drilled out all the spot welds from the Buick Regal to get this flange off. Much easier to do it here than it would be once it's on the car, so I want to clean this up now. So all I'm doing is I've trimmed down a piece of 018 steel, 22 gauge, and to the width of the holes, and I've basically traced out figured out which circle is going to suit me best on this little circle template, and I'm going along, and then as I use these, then I'm going to the next piece and drawing another circle, trimming it out roughly, but not to be perfect. But then what I'm doing is I'm taking this, which has a natural handle now, and I'll bend this up and hold it into the hole, and then I'll weld it up and then grind it off. So this gets me well away from that. It makes this little piece of steel easy to handle, and then I'll grind the whole thing off and clean it up. Anyway, that's what I'm up to. Okay, you can see on this side I just cut off the rim like I did on the other side. I don't have the Buick piece put on yet. I've cut away the inner fender liner up to here, so you can see the tires touching right there. The good part is that we've got a profile. We could probably eliminate this much more metal up here before I put the piece on, and then once I clear this away here, I can get back in here and cut away some of that inner tub in a shape that will allow this tire to fully clear. And here right now, the tires, or excuse me, the axle's up against those bump stops, so that's, that's a hard hit at speed over some railroad tracks and bottoming out the car. So that should be the worst case scenario. As you can see on this side here, gone ahead and I've, flanged this up over here as opposed to leaving it flat, which that does make a tremendous difference. I'll just hold this up over here right now. You can see I've got my hand underneath of it. My fingers are completely underneath of it between the tire and this piece. So that just gives you an idea how much clearance I've gained just by pushing that flange at an upward angle. Without that, it does hit. So it would have to either be trimmed all the way down to this point, but in order to keep the strength in this piece here so that it's not all wiggly, technical term, wiggly. Anyway, that's what it's going to look like right there. It's going to have just enough. With this completely bottomed out. This is, like I said, riding over a hard set of railroad tracks at speed, or a speed bump, and bottoming out on the frame. Anyway, that's where I'm at with this. Right, so I've gone ahead and cut this out completely, where this will butt weld up to the, the new flare. I've hammered this edge over as far as it needs to go for the tire to clear sufficiently. Trimmed it down to about 1/2 inch in that area. Now what it was hitting on, the tire was hitting on when it was bottomed out against this rubber stop here, was the inside of this rim right in this area from about here to here. So what I've done is I've taped off a line that's way up here, and I'm going to cut this right at this point here, leaving 1/2 inch, and I'm going to slice it, and I'm going to create a flange that I can then come back in and put a closure piece that comes straight out to close up to the new fender flare, and it'll be well above any interference line, because like I said, it was just rubbing, the tire was rubbing right here, and I'm going to eliminate the material all the way up to here and then bend it up so it'll be clear all the way to this point here. So that should give me adequate tire clearance for any circumstance where this would bottom out. So that's what I'm up to right now. Wish me luck. All right, so that's tire back on, axle jacked all the way up, hitting up against the bump stobs. You can see I got plenty of clearance now for this, and this flange is bent up about a half of an inch. I'll go back in and tack these so that it doesn't move around too much. And then once the flare is on and established, I'll go back in and bring something from here out to the flare itself to close that off, keep debris out of the inside of this quarter panel. Anyway, that's the action, so I'll keep on digging. Okay, now this is the tough part. I'm going to try and attempt to weld this flare on, but I have to hold it in place as I go and try to mate up the surfaces. Now, normally I would have tried to use, hang on a second, either a backer plate of aluminum or these devices here, which when you loosen them, you can basically, they have this little piece that comes out. I don't know if you've ever seen these before or not. I think I might have shown them on another video. You loosen this little screw here, and this little guy here will fit behind like this and allow this little gap here, and then you tighten this down on both pieces and you get a consistent gap all the way along. You use a bunch of these and space them out, and that way you can adjust your panel to be flush. Well, that'd be okay, but retrieving these little pieces or even putting them in, I don't have enough room to get my hand in behind here because I still have the wheel tub, so these are out. And even if I could get them in, like I said, down in this area, when I went to loosen it the very first time, these little pieces would be gone forever down here to rattle away forever. So I had to come up with a solution for this particular situation. It's different than anything else I've done so far. And what that's going to be is I've pre-drilled some holes every 4 inches. I'm going to just take these aluminum pieces that I've cut up here with a pre-drilled hole, and I'll slide those in, and I'm going to attach these with clecos all the way along here, and that'll at least give me some surface that I can drill my wheel arch to and cleco it here to stabilize the whole thing. And then when it's done being welded together, I can just release the clecos from the face and pull these out. Hopefully that'll work and I won't lose them forever down inside the car. Also, another trick I have here is I've drilled these holes out, and all these holes obviously have burrs on the backside, but it's hard to get to. So I've got a 90 grinder here, and what I've done is I've taken the these have a roll lock on the back of them, and what I've done here is I've cut the roll lock, or taken the roll lock off of this 3-inch disc, reversed it, drilled a hole in the center so that it's backwards on the pad here, and I've taken a regular 2-inch disc and put that on there to lock the whole thing together. Now what that does is it gives me some sandpaper in the reverse. It allows me to come up from behind here and clean off all those burrs on the holes with this. Anyway, I just thought I'd show you that. Bunch of little doodad tricks. All right, this gives you an idea of what I was talking about. So I've got holes drilled through here, and this gives me a backing to put my other piece up against. That's relatively solid. It helps me align these panels reasonably, and hopefully that'll be enough. If not, I can always drill a second set of holes. That won't be as good, but hopefully that I won't have to do that, and I can get this thing stitched on there just using these. At any rate, it's currently drying over here. I should have spray painted it before, but putting the weld through primer on here so I don't have to reach up and around and in behind to try and get it coated once it's up there, because there'll be very limited access, especially for a spray can. Okay, so that's what it's looking like. I'll weld it in and ground up a little bit and blend it in. Down here I'd add some metal in here just to make this little detail work at the bottom. Time to get over to the other side and rinse and repeat, as they say. Anyway, that's what we're looking like. Okay, so it took me a little while to wrestle this out from underneath the car by myself, but I basically made up another one of these quick little roller jigs, and I had a couple of bolt-up spots where the shock absorber's attached to. So I just put that in place and bolted it up before I let it loose from all its connectors. the trailing arms and the sway bar, and the panhard bar. And now I got that out of there, I can address finishing up the inside of the wheel tubs and anything else that the rear end was in the way of. I'm going to have a friend of mine go through this. Hopefully it's the right gear ratio and all that. I know the 6-cylinder and the V8 rear ends are pretty much the same, except for a slight difference in the gear ratio, but they're both the same from what I understand, the axle sizes. And I think the 6-cylinder has a lower gear ratio or a higher gear ratio, whatever you want, basically for performance for the 6-cylinder. Anyway, I think that this was thrown up under there, under the Camaro, just to get it rolling, because they obviously took the V8 out and the 4-speed transmission and the drive shaft, and they probably wanted to also have the complementary rear end and rear end gear that went with that whole setup. So they probably just, the way this was all loosely bolted up in there, they probably swapped it out really quick in order just to make a roller out of it. And it's probably, like I said, more than likely a 6-cylinder rear end. But we'll check it out and we'll see what's going on. All right, so it has been an exciting couple of days. Just been using a brush and some degreaser and going over this whole thing and cleaning it all up, getting it degreased, getting it ready to be painted. Painted it up with some heavy metal primer, rust primer, after it was done being cleaned up and wire brushed thoroughly, and then degreased with some solvent. Now it's top coated with a little hammerite black, and just make the piece a little easier, a little cleaner to handle. It was pretty dirty. Anyway, over here went ahead and put a heavy primer. It's like a rust encapsulator type primer. I've had for a while. Works pretty good. And then top coated the backside with the hammerite silver. So that's ready to go whenever that's a little bit tacky, but no rush to get that on there. Also the brackets, I had to get those cleaned up, derusted, hit them with phosphoric acid, cleaned it down, primed it up with the heavy rust encapsulator primer, and now it's just top coated with a little bit of the hammerite silver. Actually, it's a gray color. Anyway, nothing spectacular. I have to get up under the back of the car now, and there's a bunch of little loose ends under there, things that have to be welded up, some things that have to be primered, some things that have to be seam sealed. Just a lot of exciting stuff. Also, I have to do the closures for the wheel tubs, so that's what I'll be mainly playing around with today, and maybe some of that tomorrow. Anyway, not that exciting, but has to be done. All right, I just thought I'd show you these brackets finished up over here and bolted up to the car. You can see they're offset from the center of the frame rail slightly. They're off a little wide here. But anyway, they're bolted up to the car for the last time for the front bumper. I just thought I'd give you a look at those and how that went on. It was pretty simple. Basically, you just cut the extensions off of the pistons that normally operate the 5-mile-per-hour bumpers on the Buick and the El Camino, and then brought the bumper in, bolted these pieces up to the backside, and then slid a plate in and tacked it up, and that's basically the situation. Anyway, back to crawling around under the back of the car. All right, I just thought I'd let you take a look at what it looks like with the bumper bolted on. Nothing spectacular, that's just it. So, got a few more things to stabilize. I also went ahead and remember how this was, there was nothing to attach to these pieces on the side over here. Now they've got those pieces of aluminum that I had put in and epoxied in, and so I was able to drive the similar screw that normally goes into the side of the housing over here into the bottom hole over there where was nothing to pick up the screw at that point. So yeah, so anyway, so that's pretty much the whole front end assembly attached. I still have to put some outriggers for the fenders over here to stabilize those. I got to work the plastic wheel tubs in, see how they're going to work out inside there. So I'm working back here now on closing up the frame rail ends. I'm on this side here. I'll show you what I'm dealing with though, because it's a million trips up and down off the floor to fit all these little teeny weeny tiny pieces. So let me see if I can get a light on here. It should. All right, so you can see this is where the trailing arm is picked up on this flange right here, and you can see the end of this frame rail member here. So this has to be capped off here, but more importantly, this has to be capped off all the way up to the top over here. So I'll take it in stages, because one of the things you have to worry about here is there's this little opening here. It's right across from the bolts. It has to be maintained in order for you to pull the bolts out of the trailing arms if you're going to remove the trailing arms. So my closure has to go up higher than here, then across, and then up. I'll show you how far I've gotten on the other side. It's, like I said, very tedious up and down off the floor. But I'll show you here. I'll show you this when it's all done too. But you can see at each stage I'm making the pieces, and then I'm primering as I go. So I have to wait for the primer to dry, and then I fit another piece in. But with this one, I've gone up. You can see that I've maintained a place for the, excuse me, here, right here. Okay, so you can get the bolt out right here. So I've basically taken the ceiling of this cap up high enough so that doesn't interfere, and brought it back here, and now I've got a piece that I'm currently, it's drying, that goes right in here. It'll get welded right in here, and that once this cap is in here and this cap is in here, that'll close the back end and keep debris from the tire rolling, driving up and into these cavities up here. Anyway, that's what I'm doing here. I still have to go about finishing the closure, which is very tiny. Not much closure here, actually. That has to happen a little bit closer, and I could probably just put a bead of caulk on it. You know, I pulled up this flange here, bent up this little flange, but we got to put a piece that goes across to here. In the meantime, also, I'm cleaning up everything else, all inside these pockets here, and all around all of this stuff. And as I clean it up, I'm just hitting it with this Rust-Oleum Hammerite paint just as I go, so I can see where I'm at. It's kind of confusing. There's a lot of little ins and outs up there, and I don't want to paint over any dirt. But for anybody who's wondering about how durable that can paint is, it's coming out of a can. This is a piece of metal that was painted over 20 years ago with that paint, and it's been through a lot. Anyway, it's came off of a structure that we used to stabilize our templing system at work, and didn't even primer. There's no primer on this, but this paint just has hung on to that surface really well, and that's the same stuff. It's the Hammerite paint, and it doesn't even require you to, it should clean up the surface of debris and dirt and grease and stuff like that, but the stuff, doesn't even need a primer to really bite onto the metal. And anyway, the logic being that, this is going to be it's not going to be show car. I'm not going to have mirrors under it or anything, but, if I want to spruce it up underneath, what's going to be easier, having the car on a rotisserie and respraying it with some kind of a base coat, clear coat system, or just going on there with a spray bomb and touching it up every now and again if I want to, which I probably won't once I do this. That'll be the last time I look at the bottom of the car, hopefully. Anyway, I just thought I'd show you where I'm at. Okay, so I've been slowly manually cleaning up every little nook and cranny with some, both wire brushes and solvent, trying to clean everything down. And as you can see, I've got most of this painted underneath, at least from the end of the bed all the way up to the beginning of the transmission tunnel. I said I would show you this other thing that I had just gotten done doing, which was the capping off the frame rail, how that all looks at the end. As you can see, it's closed up here and down and then through, and then this section here is closed up. Now I'll also be running some seam sealer around all of these little joints, but all this had to get a coat of paint on it before I could do that, and then I'll paint back over all the seam sealer. So there's lots of little joints like in here and across here that have to be done, but I'll let this paint dry up over the weekend. It's Friday afternoon and I'm about ready to call it. So this is where I'm going to leave this video. Let me get out from under here. I've been under here all day. At any rate, sneaking up on it. One other thing I wanted to show you that I'm not too happy about not being able to resolve to my satisfaction, but these shock absorbers. They're this type of shock absorber that comes through the body of the car vertically. Now, in the Camaro, you had to pull the back seat forward, and then there was some carpeting and stuff, and these were fastened behind the seats. Unfortunately, this is where they come out here, so they stick up about 2 inches tall, which, that's in the middle of the bed where you would load things. So what I'm going to have to do is, when I come through here, I looked at trying to change the way it's mounted underneath. There's just no room under there. Anyway, one of the things I like to be able to carry is 4x8 sheets of material, which of course there's not 48 inches between these wheel tubs. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a cap that will cover that stud sticking up through the floor of this bed. It'll extend out, but it'll also create a riser so that if I want to slide a sheet of material in that's 4 foot wide, it'll just ride up over these wheel tubs on these two little risers on the edge, and then I'll have a small ledge in the corners over here also to be able to catch any sheet goods I decide that I want to carry in this truck. I'm going to be using it as a truck, so got to make sure it's able to be used like that. I'm giving up a lot here based on what I'm using now, which is a long bed extended cab, a Silverado 97 Silverado, which, I mean, the first time I showed up to pick up some sheet metal, and they slid the stuff into the back of the bed, and I was able to close the tailgate. The guy looked at me wide-eyed because I don't think he's seen that happen in years or since he's been working there, because all these trucks today have at maximum, I think, 6.5 foot beds, unless you've got a work truck, which you don't see too many of those base trucks being used by civilians. But at any rate, that's going to be my solution to that, just to cover up those two studs. At any rate, I said at any rate about 5 times now. That's about where I'm going to leave it this week, and for this video. And I'd like to thank anybody who's been watching so far. I appreciate you following along, and I will see you on the next one.